Imagine a religion with no God to worship, no soul to save, and no promises of heaven, and yet it brings the deepest peace you've ever known. This is the path the Buddha walked, and tonight, if you're ready, we'll walk a little of it together. There are moments, often quiet and unannounced, when a question sneaks into your mind, not the kind you answer with a yes or no, but one that lingers in your chest like the aftertaste of an old song. What if everything I believed about life isn't quite as it seems? It's not a question of doubt, but of gentle wondering, the kind that visits you in the early hours, long after the world has gone to sleep. Maybe you've felt it too, that strange, delicate sense that beneath the surface of our daily routines, the coffee cups, the quiet walks, the conversations with old friends, there's something deeper breathing beneath it all. Something wordless. And yet, we've all been taught to look for certainty in our faith, our purpose, even in our suffering. We want something to hold on to, a map, a promise, a voice from the sky saying, it's all going to be okay. But what if instead of reaching outward, we turned inward? What if truth wasn't something shouted from a mountaintop, but something whispered from within? Tonight, I want to invite you into a story, not a sermon, but a journey, one that meanders like a river and pauses like breath. We'll walk alongside a quiet man who long ago sat beneath a tree and looked directly into the mystery of life and did not flinch. The villagers who saw him said he looked different, not in the way people change after a long journey or a bout of illness, but in a way that made your heart beat slower just standing near him. He was silent for days after his awakening, not because he didn't know what to say, but because he realized that words, most of the time, only complicate the truth. Still, the people came, curious, hopeful, some even skeptical. One man approached him boldly, as the legend goes, and asked, "Are you a god?" The quiet man smiled. "No." "Then what are you?" he pressed. The man simply replied, "I am awake." And that was it. No great claim, no miracles, just awareness, pure, luminous, unshakable. The villagers didn't quite understand, but they felt something, a calmness that touched their bones. What does it mean, you might ask, to be truly awake? Is it a moment, a decision, a revelation? Or is it the gradual undoing of all the things we were certain about? Because we build our lives on beliefs, sometimes beautiful, sometimes borrowed, and we rarely stop to question where those beliefs came from. Why do we cling to the idea that someone, somewhere, must be in charge of this life, writing the script, turning the pages? Is it because the alternative, that no one's at the wheel, terrifies us? And yet, is it not possible that the absence of control is exactly what allows life to unfold with such mysterious grace? Buddha did not offer a god. He did not promise paradise. He gave no commandments carved in stone. Instead, he handed us a mirror, and with the gentlest gaze, invited us to look, not at the heavens, but into the trembling truth of our own hearts. And perhaps, just perhaps, that's where the real journey begins. That silence, you see, it unnerves most people. Not because it's empty, but because it's too full. We are so used to being told what is, what to believe, what to hope for, what to fear, that when silence arrives, unadorned and spacious, we don't quite know where to place it. It's like walking into a room and realizing the music has stopped, and in the absence of sound, you begin to hear your own heartbeat, and maybe even your own questions. One afternoon, a merchant from the city came to see the Buddha. His voice was loud, his robe finely woven, his fingers heavy with gold rings. He knelt stiffly, more out of social custom than reverence, and asked, "If there is no God, no soul, no heaven, then what's the point? Why try to be good? Why seek peace? Why even live? The Buddha didn't answer right away. He just looked at the man, not through him, not past him, but directly into him, in that quiet way that makes even the most confident person forget their lines. And then he said, "Because you are alive, and that is more than enough." The merchant blinked. "That's it?" he scoffed. The Buddha smiled. "Yes, but for one who truly understands that, it is everything." Now, pause with me for a moment here, friend. What if that is the key we've been overlooking all along? Not a divine puppeteer managing the chaos, not a promise of rewards after death, but the sheer quiet miracle of being here, of breathing, of seeing the sun hit your teacup just right, of hearing a sparrow in the morning, or feeling the ache in your knees and knowing, "Ah, yes, I am still here." You might be thinking, "That's not enough for me. I want more. I want answers." But have those answers, the ones we were given all our lives, truly satisfied you? There is a story told by the old monks about a man who was shot by a poisoned arrow. As others rushed to help him, he insisted they first tell him who made the arrow, what tribe the archer came from, what kind of feathers were used. They begged him to let them remove it first, but he refused, demanding explanations, and so he died before the arrow was ever pulled out. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? And yet, how many of us live just like that, clutching our questions like armor, while suffering bleeds quietly beneath? You see, what the Buddha offered wasn't a new myth, it was a gentle dismantling of all myths. A tender hand reaching across the illusion, saying, "Let's not chase shadows anymore, let's sit in the real." And here's where it gets interesting, because sitting in the real isn't easy. In fact, it can be terrifying. Without the promise of a God watching over us, without the comfort of a life after this one, without a soul to cling to, what is left? But that's exactly the moment where something extraordinary begins to stir. And what that is, well, that's a story worth lingering for. There's a strange thing that happens when we begin peeling away the layers of belief. It doesn't happen all at once. No, it's more like walking into a familiar room at dusk and only gradually realizing the furniture isn't where it used to be. And that's unsettling. You might find yourself like the village boy in the story I once heard, staring at the stars one night, whispering into the wind, "If there is no one listening, then who am I talking to?" His name was Anu, barely 13, and full of questions most grown men were afraid to ask. He would sit by the riverbank for hours, hurling his thoughts like pebbles into the current. If I don't have a soul, then what makes me, me? One evening he followed a wandering monk into the forest, hoping for answers. The monk, old and dusty as a forgotten scroll, didn't speak much. But he listened, and after a long silence he said, "You are not the pebble, Anu. You are the ripples." Anu didn't understand. Everything you think you are, your name, your face, your memories, they rise and fall like waves. But the river, it keeps flowing. Who you are is not something fixed. It is something alive, moving, changing, never the same twice. Anu frowned, unsatisfied. "So I'm nothing?" "No," the monk smiled. "You are everything, because you're not trapped in one shape. Now, stop here with me, just for a breath. Let that image settle. You are the ripple, not the pebble. What does that change? Perhaps it means you're not as alone as you thought, that your pain, your joy, your past, they all ripple out, touching shores you'll never see. And perhaps that's more beautiful than any fixed identity could ever be. But it also means letting go of who you believed you were, of the old maps you've clung to. And oh, how fiercely we hold on to those maps, even when they no longer fit the landscape of our lives. Maybe that's why so many feel lost when their beliefs begin to fade. It's like walking without a lantern, trusting that the night will teach you how to see. And yet the Buddha did just that. He walked into the darkness of unknowing and came out radiant. Can we? You see, it's not the absence of belief that frightens us, it's the absence of certainty. But sometimes, just sometimes, that very uncertainty is what wakes us up, like thunder cracking open a quiet sky. Because if you're not who you thought you were, then who are you? And the moment that question truly takes root in your heart, not as philosophy, but as a living ache, that's when the real story begins. And in the next part, we'll follow that ache all the way to its source. Some truths don't arrive as light, they arrive as cracks, hairline fractures in the surface of everything we thought we knew, and once they appear, no matter how much we try to ignore them, we can't unsee, we can't go back. One man who knew this all too well was Devadatta, a disciple once close to the Buddha, though his heart wavered in quiet ways. He came to the Buddha with trembling eyes, asking, "Why must we let go of everything? Why not just teach people how to want the right things?" The question seems innocent enough, sensible even. Why not simply redirect desire, tame it, paint it gold? But the Buddha only looked at him with a softness that felt heavier than stone. "If you keep feeding the fire," he said, "even with sweet wood, it still burns." That night, Devadatta sat alone beneath a tree, and for the first time let himself feel the hunger beneath his hunger, not the craving for food or praise or even enlightenment, but that nameless itch that lives in the chest, the one that says, "More, always more." Have you felt it? Maybe it showed up as ambition, or the need to be loved, or the ache to leave something behind before your time runs out. Maybe it dressed itself as selflessness, giving and giving, yet quietly expecting something in return, a legacy, a smile, a seat in heaven. But underneath it all, was it not still you? And if so, who is it that's always chasing, always reaching? That's where Devadatta broke, not in anger, but in a strange kind of silence. He had spent his whole life building a ladder toward the sky, only to realize the sky cannot be reached because it is not a place, it is a letting go. The next morning, he returned to the Buddha, eyes sunken but clear, and said only this, "I don't know what I am anymore." The Buddha smiled. "Good," he said, "because you see, there's a peculiar freedom that comes the moment our identities begin to dissolve, not as a loss but as a loosening. When you are no longer trapped in the mirror of your own story, you can begin to see, and that's where things get dangerous. Not because it's dark, but because you're not used to the light. So let me ask you something. If all your titles, your roles, your memories were stripped away, who would you be? If no one called you father, sister, teacher, friend, would you still exist? And if the answer isn't immediate, isn't that worth exploring? In the next part, we'll follow that question, not into philosophy, but into the raw, trembling place where desire is born and dies. Desire rarely announces itself with thunder. More often, it arrives quietly, like steam from a teacup, curling into the air, harmless, you think, almost gentle. A small thought, "I want," a small ache, "if only." But desire, left unchecked, becomes a wind that never rests, and soon it begins to howl. There was a woman in the village, older than most, with hair like silver smoke and a spine curved like the crescent moon. They called her Amala, which means pure, though her life had been anything but. She had loved many times, lost more than she could count, and lived with a hunger that never seemed to quiet. Not for food, not for riches, but for meaning. One day, she went to the monastery carrying nothing but a folded shawl and a story pressed into her bones. She asked the Buddha a question that no scripture could truly answer. "Why do I feel so empty, even now, after all these years? I've prayed, I've fasted, I've been generous. Why is it never enough?" The Buddha listened, not with words but with his presence. Then he picked up a leaf from the ground, brittle and browned by the sun. "This leaf once trembled in the wind," he said softly, always hoping the breeze would take it somewhere meaningful. But it never knew. It was already part of the tree. Amala's lips parted, but she said nothing. The breeze passed gently through the courtyard, and in that moment she understood, not with the mind, but with something quieter. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Desire doesn't want to be fulfilled. It wants to keep chasing. It feeds on the horizon, and every time you think you've arrived, it whispers, "Just a little more." Think about it. The job, the house, the praise, the lover, the spiritual goal, didn't they all feel for a moment like they would complete you? And yet, how long did that moment last? The Buddha said that the nature of desire is not satisfaction, but continuation. It is the flame that survives by consuming itself, and the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. But, and here's the part that might surprise you, desire isn't the enemy, it's the invitation. The invitation to look closer, beneath the craving, to the ache that lies underneath, the longing not for more, but for rest. Can you feel that? That deep down weariness? Not from age, but from always reaching? In our next part, we'll follow that thread deeper into the heart of what we think we want, and what happens when we finally stop chasing. Because something strange happens when the reaching ends, and it just might change everything. He was a respected man, the kind whose name opened doors and silenced rooms. People listened when he spoke, not out of fear, but out of habit. Success, after all, speaks its own language. His clothes were always pressed, his shoes carried the quiet shine of wealth, and his house sat on a hill that overlooked the town like a satisfied god. But inside, he was starving. I met him once, this man with polished speech and weathered eyes. He leaned in close, as if afraid someone might hear, and whispered, "Why do I still feel hollow?" I didn't answer, not because I didn't care, but because I recognized that hollowness, it's the same quiet ache that visits all of us eventually, the one that shows up after the last promotion, after the children leave home, after the party ends. The ache that says, "I did everything right, so why do I still feel like something's missing?" And what do we usually do with that ache? We decorate it, we hide it behind new projects, new goals, a new haircut, a donation, a spiritual retreat. We feed it the way you might feed a crying child, not with what it truly needs, but with whatever is nearby. The Buddha once told a parable about a man who drank seawater to quench his thirst. The more he drank, the thirstier he became, and yet he kept drinking. Now you might smile thinking, of course that's foolish, but how many of us are sipping from the same ocean of almosts, almost fulfilled, almost content, almost at peace? And when we catch ourselves, we often double down. We say, "I just need a little more time, a little more love, a little more spiritual clarity." But what if the answer isn't more but less? What if the hollowness isn't a flaw but a door? You see, the Buddha taught that real peace begins not when we finally possess everything, but when we finally stop trying to possess. And that is where the man on the hill broke down, not in shame, not in despair, but in quiet recognition. He sat in his garden one morning, birds flitting through the branches, tea cooling in his hand, and he didn't feel the need to move, or solve, or chase. For the first time in decades, he didn't want anything. He was, as the old texts say, at ease in the now. But here's where it turns. Just as he was settling into that unfamiliar peace, a new voice crept in, a whisper from within. "But if I let go of everything, will there be anything left?" And that question, it shook him, because if you truly release all your attachments to identity, to purpose, to control, do you still exist? That's the cliff we'll approach in the next part, where self begins to dissolve and something deeper begins to breathe. There's a peculiar feeling that comes when the image in the mirror no longer satisfies. You know, the version of you that has been carefully constructed over the years, the roles, the routines, the name etched into envelopes and whispered in rooms. The one that smiles politely, answers questions with practiced warmth, remembers birthdays, pays bills and keeps it all together. But underneath it, what lives there? One night, not long after his quiet awakening, the Buddha sat with a handful of seekers under a banyan tree. The moonlight spilled through the leaves like scattered silver, and one of the younger monks, barely 20, leaned forward and asked, "Master, do I have a soul?" The Buddha looked up at the sky, then back at the boy. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no. Instead he asked, "If you light one lamp from another, is the second flame the same or different?" The boy frowned. "It's the same flame." "Is it?" the Buddha said gently, "or is it simply continuation?" That question fell like a pebble into a still pond, and no one spoke for a long while. And you, listening now, maybe you feel the same ripple, because we all carry some image of self, a little shrine in the mind where we place our stories. This is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I deserve, and oh, how tightly we defend that image. But what if it's just smoke? What if we are not the statue, but the space that holds it? The Buddha taught not that we are nothing, but that we are not the thing we imagine ourselves to be. We are not fixed, not permanent, not separate. We are the wind passing through. Now that can sound terrifying. If I am not me, then who is living this life? But here's the unexpected truth. In letting go of the fixed self, we make room for something infinitely more spacious, something not owned but shared, not defined but felt, like warmth, like silence, like the ocean that continues, even when the waves forget their names. And here's where the story gently pivots, because once the self begins to dissolve, something unexpected tends to happen. The suffering softens. You begin to suffer less, not because life is easier, but because there's less you clinging to the pain. It's like setting down a heavy coat you didn't realize you were wearing. But that lightness, oh, that lightness, it's unfamiliar, and the mind, so addicted to its weight, will whisper, "Pick it back up, you need it, you'll disappear without it. Will you?" That's the quiet cliff we now stand upon, and in the next part, we'll take one soft step further into the space where self ends and presence begins. You'd think that letting go of the self would feel like death, but strangely, it feels more like breathing, not the shallow breath of getting through the day, but the kind you forgot existed, the breath that moves from the center of your chest, as if the universe were quietly exhaling through you. There was once a monk, old as the mountain trails, with a voice like cracked stone and eyes soft as candlelight. He lived alone in a hut made of bamboo and mud, far beyond the edge of any map. They say he hadn't spoken in years, not out of discipline, but because he simply had nothing to say. One morning a traveler found his hut after days lost in the hills, starving, blistered, soaked from the rain. When the monk opened the door, the traveler collapsed into his arms. No words, no introductions, just exhaustion, physical and spiritual. The monk didn't ask where he came from. He didn't ask his name. He just made tea. They sat by the fire, the flames dancing on the old monk's wrinkled face, and after some time, the traveler broke the silence. "Why don't you speak?" he asked. The monk looked at him, smiled, then whispered, "Because I'm not here." The traveler blinked, unsure if he'd misunderstood, but the monk only tapped his own chest and said, "This was never mine." Now think of that. What if your sadness wasn't yours? What if your joy, your anger, your memories were like birds nesting in a tree, but not the tree itself? You see, The Buddha didn't say you are nothing. He said you are not a thing, and there's a quiet but radical difference. Because the self we cling to, the one who gets offended, who needs to be praised, who fears death, is a mental construction built from stories stacked like stones. It is not wrong, it is not evil, it's just temporary. And once we see that, really see it, we can stop fighting to protect something that was never ours to begin with. Now here's where it gets strange. When the traveler left the hut 3 days later, he felt lighter, not because he had learned anything, but because something had quietly unraveled inside him. He no longer needed to be someone in order to feel alive. And that kind of freedom, it doesn't shout, it doesn't shine, it whispers, and if you listen closely enough, it begins to rearrange the way the world feels in your hands. So here's the question that emerges, soft but sharp. If you are not who you thought you were, then what have you always been? The answer, or rather the silence that follows, is where we'll go next. Because there is a kind of peace that doesn't come from answers, but from falling gently into that space where nothing needs to be held. There's a moment, and maybe you've felt it, where everything is quiet, but not empty. Like standing in fresh snow just before dawn. No footsteps, no sound, just that strange holy hush, where even time seems to pause, unsure of what comes next. The Buddhists have a word for this kind of stillness, shunyata, emptiness. But that word, it's misleading. To most, emptiness feels like absence, like a room without furniture, a sky without stars. But this isn't that kind of empty. This is the fullness that arises when all the clutter is gone, a kind of sacred spaciousness where something real finally has room to breathe. There was a nun named Sujata who lived in the hills behind the monastery, tending a garden that fed the entire Sangha. No one spoke of her much. She was like rainfall, always there, never announcing itself. But once during a season of drought, her garden withered and she stopped coming down to the temple. After several weeks, a novice monk went to check on her. He found her kneeling in dry soil, eyes closed, hands in her lap, surrounded by the dead stalks of all she had grown. "You haven't eaten," he whispered. She opened her eyes, calm as moonlight. "I'm being emptied," she said. The boy didn't understand, but she didn't explain. Because here's what she knew and what we forget. Sometimes the drought isn't a punishment, it's preparation. Sometimes the withering isn't the end of something, it's the moment before rebirth. And sometimes when life strips everything away, we're not being abandoned, we're being cleared. But let's be honest, emptiness terrifies us. We fill every pause with noise, every silence with explanation, every quiet moment with distraction. We reach for the phone, the plan, the prayer, the past, anything to avoid that vast echoing space where the self begins to slip and the truth begins to hum. And yet, if you can stay, if you can remain just one breath longer in the stillness, something opens, not a grand revelation, not angels singing, just a softness, a deep okayness, a warmth without cause, and in that warmth you begin to realize you never needed to become anything, you only needed to remember. And so Sujata, with her hands resting in empty soil, smiled, because in that moment she wasn't the gardener, she wasn't even the woman, she was just here, and here was enough. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped filling every empty space? What might rise from the soil of your life if you simply let it be still? In the next part, we'll lean into that question and explore what waits in the silence when we finally stop digging. Stillness, when you stay with it long enough, begins to whisper back, not in words exactly, but in a way that makes you suddenly aware of things you'd forgotten how to notice. The way the wind stirs the curtains, the pause between your heartbeat and your breath, the weight of your own hands resting quietly in your lap. And then something stranger happens. The silence no longer feels empty, but alive. That's what Sujata realized, days after the monk had left her to her quiet drought. One morning, just as the mist was lifting from the hills, she stepped outside and noticed something impossible, a single green sprout pushing up through the dry earth. No one had watered it, no clouds had wept, but there it was, alive, defiant, soft. She didn't cry, she didn't run for the others. She simply knelt beside it, eyes wide, lips parted, and said quietly, "You heard me." Because in some strange way the universe does listen, but not to your noise, not to your desperate asking. It listens when you stop performing, when you stop trying to control the outcome, impress the heavens, or argue with fate. It listens to stillness, and this is the paradox, isn't it? That in letting go of all effort, something new begins to grow, not because you forced it, but because you finally stepped aside. The Buddha called this non-doing, not laziness, not avoidance, but the art of allowing. And this is where it begins to challenge everything we've been taught. We live in a world addicted to striving, hustle, prove, fix, build, accumulate, leave a mark. But what if your mark isn't meant to be left but erased? What if true peace doesn't come from achieving, but from dissolving? Can you feel it? That gentle pull, not toward the next task, but toward the ground beneath your feet, toward a life that doesn't need polishing, toward a self that doesn't need to be worthy. Just here. Just this. This is what Sujata tasted as she cupped the tiny green sprout in her hand. Not pride, not achievement, but awe. The kind of awe that makes you quiet for days. The kind that doesn't need to be shared to be sacred. And so she stayed. In her garden, in her breath, in her life. And slowly, without effort, everything began to bloom. So let me ask you now, what part of you is trying so hard to be something that it's forgotten how to simply be? And what might grow in your life if you let that part rest? In the next part, we'll return to the Buddha and discover how even bliss, if clung to, becomes another form of suffering. Because freedom, as you'll soon see, isn't found in the highs. It's found in the letting go of everything, even joy. It's a strange thought, isn't it? That joy, that precious light we spend our lives chasing, could ever be a problem. But the Buddha saw it, as he saw so many things, with piercing clarity. After his awakening beneath the Bodhi tree, disciples flocked to him, seekers of suffering, yes, but also seekers of bliss. One young man, after weeks of meditation, came to him glowing. "Master," he said breathlessly, "I feel it. I finally feel the bliss they talk about. I am free." The Buddha tilted his head gently. "Are you?" The young man nodded, eyes wide with triumph. "I sit and joy floods me. I feel light, untouched. I never want it to end." And there, in that last sentence, was the thread. The Buddha didn't scold him. He didn't dismiss the joy. He simply said, "Notice the never, notice the want, because even bliss, when clung to, becomes bondage." This is what so few understand. Freedom is not the presence of constant joy. It's the absence of needing it. Think about it. How many times have you been happy and immediately feared it would slip away? How many moments of peace have been shadowed by the whisper, "Don't lose this, hold on, stay here forever"? But holding is the beginning of suffering. It's like trying to preserve a snowflake in your palm. The tighter you grasp it, the faster it melts. The Buddha taught that even heavenly pleasures, if attached to, become prisons, because the mind, once addicted to sweetness, begins to fear the return of the bitter, and fear is the thief of presence. This doesn't mean we reject joy. No, It means we bow to it like a bird passing through our open hands and let it fly on, to love the sunrise and not need it again tomorrow, to feel peace in your bones but not demand it every night, to experience joy and then let it go. That's the freedom no one talks about. The kind that isn't loud or poetic, but tender, humble, and terrifying in its simplicity. And here's where it turns inward. If you knew that nothing, not even joy, could be held forever, would you still reach for it, or would you begin to sit differently, not to get something from life, but to meet it exactly as it is? That's where the Buddha lived, not in transcendence, but in total intimacy with what is. And that's where we're headed next. Because in the next part we'll walk with him through the final gate, where the self has fallen, the grasping has stilled, and what remains is so quiet it almost feels like nothing. But it's not nothing. It's the beginning of a beauty that doesn't need your permission to exist. By now, perhaps you've noticed it too. That softening, that subtle shift in the way your breath moves, that strange, unfamiliar feeling that maybe, just maybe, you don't need to keep reaching. It's disorienting, isn't it? To arrive nowhere and feel like you've come home. There is a silence the Buddha carried that could not be taught, not because it was secret, but because it was too alive to be contained in words. His disciples said that when he sat, he seemed to dissolve into the earth itself, not as a metaphor, not as poetry, but truly as if the space around him stopped pretending to be separate, and sometimes, just watching him, the others would begin to cry, not out of sorrow, not even joy, but recognition. So this is what it feels like to just be. No striving, no identity, no doctrine, just the unnameable hum of existence unfolding through you, without resistance, without agenda, without fear. The final gate, the Buddha said, is not enlightenment, it's not bliss, it's not virtue, it's surrender, not a dramatic collapse, not an act of defeat, but the quiet moment you stop trying to be anything, even peaceful, even wise. You just are, and in that being, something extraordinary begins to glow. It's not the light of angels or visions or eternal reward. It's the light of no longer needing any of those things. And here, dear one, here is where you realize you were never lost. You just forgot how to sit still long enough to notice you were already home. There's an old story told in the forest temples of Sri Lanka about a blind man who searched the world for the moon. He climbed mountains, crossed rivers, sailed seas, always asking strangers, "Where is the moon? I've heard it's beautiful." And one night, as he sat by a quiet pond, an old woman touched his chest and said, "It's not out there, it's here." And for the first time he looked inward. That's all the Buddha ever really offered. Not a system, not salvation, just a turning inward, so simple, so honest, that it scared most who approached it. But not you. You've come this far, through every unlearning, every soft collapse, every beautiful unraveling, and now only one step remains, not forward, but inward. In the final part, we'll take that step together and let everything fall away in one last breath, so that what's been here all along can finally rise. So here we are, not at the end, really, but in the gentle hush that follows a long, tender story, when you're not quite ready to speak because your heart is still listening. You've walked this far with me, through questions that had no clear answers, through the soft undoing of old certainties, through the ache of desire, the disorientation of emptiness, and the luminous quiet that came after everything was finally set down. And now, just pause, right here. Feel the breath moving through you, unforced, unhurried. Feel the weight you're not carrying. Feel the presence that doesn't need to be proven. This is the gift the Buddha left behind. Not a religion, not a belief, but a way of remembering, a way of being so open, so still, so intimate with the moment that life itself begins to reveal what no teaching ever could. He never asked for worship, he never claimed to save anyone, he simply said, "Come and see." And what you find if you look with clear eyes is not a truth you must grasp, but a truth that's been holding you all along. There's no need to transcend anything, no need to earn, improve, or escape. You're not broken, you're not behind, you're not late. You are already woven into the fabric of now, complete, tender, and unspeakably enough. And perhaps that's all that's ever been asked of us, to stop chasing after the wind, to stop polishing our names, to stop mistaking the ripples for the river, and instead, just be. Be like the monk who never spoke because silence said it better. Be like Sujata, who smiled into her dry garden and trusted that life still lives beneath the dust. Be like the old man who set down his empire for a single breath of peace. And maybe, when the end comes, when the candle begins to flicker low, you too will sit in that soft light, unafraid, because you no longer need to hold anything. Because you are not your past, not your beliefs, not even your name. You are the stillness beneath it all, the quiet wisdom that waits patiently for the world to remember it. So I'll leave you now, not with advice, not with answers, but with something more sacred, a blessing. May you walk gently through your days, no longer trying to arrive, but simply to be. And in that being, may you find the kind of peace that doesn't fade, because it was never something you found. It was always something you are.